Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Steph Thurling. I'm the Executive Director of Christian Parenting, a mom of 3, and I am so glad that you're here. This is a place where you can bring your real self, no matter what that looks like today, and be given the space, resources, and encouragement you need to set aside perfection and grow into the perfectly imperfect parent God made you to be. Hey everyone, thank you for joining me again this week. We are ending our series on discipleship, talking about adult kids, because our journey as parents does not end just because our kids are grown and out of the house. It certainly changes, but it doesn't end. And today I am joined by my friend Pamela Henkleman. She is a coach for midlife moms, so for moms who have adult kids. And we are talking all things empty nest and adult kids. We talk about how she discipled her own kids, what she would do differently, what it looks like now. And we also spend some time talking about prodigals. What does life look like when you do all the things you're supposed to do to disciple your kids, all the things we've been talking about, but they end up not walking with the Lord? So we talk all about that too, and she answers some of our questions. You're going to love the way Pamela continually reminds us that we don't need to be perfect parents. God is our perfect parent, and He is writing our stories, and He is writing our kids' stories. I hope that you love this episode and get a lot out of Pamela's perspective. At this point in my life, I can't even imagine what life will look like when my kids are grown, but I find it really encouraging to learn from moms who go before me, and I hope that you do too. Hi, Pamela. How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Oh, good. I am so happy that you are joining me today. I want everyone to get to know you. We've been talking for a long time before I pushed record, you guys, and I finally was like, we just need to push record and continue this conversation on air because you have so much wisdom to share. So I can't wait for people to get to know you. But first, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your ministry, your family, and then you have that one word or phrase to describe your family.
Awesome. Yes, my name is Pamela Henkleman, and I'm an empty nest coach. I'm a speaker and a writer, and I'm a host of the Midlife Mama podcast. And I help Christian moms launch their kids to college and enjoy their empty nest. I feel like moms are really often forgotten once our kids are raised. You know, we know what to do, endless books and blogs about parenting. And then when our kids reach 18, the world goes quiet and we're left with, well, what in the world do I do now? So I love serving these moms and helping them just still have confidence in the season of life, but also knowing that we have to do things differently.
And tell us about your family.
I
You have launched into the world.
I have a beautiful bunch. We have 5 grown kids. 4 of them are married, and we have 2 grandkids. And the phrase that I would use to describe my bunch would be wildly creative. We are a group of musicians and artists and writers and actors. So we were very busy in the arts when all of our kids were home.
How old are your grandkids now?
They are 6 and 8.
Okay.
And there are talks of more.
Well, that's a fun stage.
It's very exciting. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then tell us, in all of your parenting wisdom, what is one thing that you want every parent to know?
I think we just have to stop trying to be the perfect parent. I love that God, in His beautiful design, made moms. He made each mom the way He made her, and He created her in such a unique way with special giftings and abilities that would be perfect for the exact children that God gave her. So all she has to do is spend time getting to know how God wired her, and then also understanding her children. Because when we understand how God made our children, we can ease up a little and not have to fear that I'm going to get it wrong, I'm going to mess it up. I feel like that I spend a lot of time just thinking, God, I don't want to mess this up. And I think part of that comes from both my husband and I didn't grow up in the church. And so we had a lot of dysfunction in our family. And so we really wanted to do this well. And that's what every parent wants. They just want to do it well. But we put too much pressure on ourselves. So it's easy for me to say now, just lighten up, moms. It's all going to be fine.
I actually disagree that it's easy for you to say now, because I have said it before and I will say it again, that besides having your first kid, I really do think that adjusting to having adult kids, not that I've been there, but I feel like it has to be one of the hardest stages of parenting. Like,
I don't know if that's the hardest. It might be the biggest shift because you
yeah,
go
maybe
from
that's
you
what I mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you go from being so responsible for them and you manage them very well. Like they lived in your home, and so you had a say. But when they reach adulthood, like all hands are off. Like they are
Yeah.
grown people who can make their own choices, and you're like, oh my goodness. Sometimes that is very painful.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
okay, we're going to talk all about that today.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you on because we are ending our series on discipling kids. And since all your kids are grown and now you have these little grandkids that you get to add into the mix.
Yeah.
This is kind of like your wheelhouse. And I think it's good to talk about the end game of parenting, which we
Right.
already said, like, parenting never ends.
Right.
But I think for most of us listening, our goal with our younger kids would be to raise adults who are well adjusted and follow Jesus.
That's
Like
right.
that's what we all want.
That's what
But
we
the
all want.
reality is, our ideals and plans may not come to fruition and it may just look different than we thought. And those are all things that we have to manage when our kids
Right.
are grown.
Right.
So we're going to cover a lot of those things.
All right.
I want to know, looking back, like, tell us about raising your kids. What are some of the things that you did to disciple your kids that worked well for you?
Sure. Well, I wanted my kids to know that Jesus was real because I didn't grow up knowing Jesus. So I didn't want him to be like this formal churchy thing. Even though my
Mm,
husband and I are in ministry, I wanted to know that Jesus is someone you can talk to whenever, like he's always with us. And so I always cultivated this idea that me having a relationship with Jesus was very important to me, spending my time. So when I had littles, I would get up every morning and pull out my Bible and my journal, and often they would come in and interrupt me. And I didn't even mind it because I wanted them
mm,
to see what it looked like to actually have a real living relationship with Jesus. Because sometimes I feel like, Mama, that's the most important thing. Like your relationship with Jesus has to be real and authentic because our kids, they can see through it when it's not. They can see if we're more concerned about how we look as a family than
mm.
our actual real life relationship with Jesus. So that's such an important thing for me that I just wanted my kids to know that Jesus was very important to me, and we were going to talk about it, you know, in our coming and our going, when we're in the kitchen, when we're doing this, we're doing that. Jesus was just always something we talked about. It wasn't something that we reserved for Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights when they had their activities.
Yeah. I love that you share that because I think right away you're taking some of the pressure off of
Hmm.
parents, specifically moms, that like discipling your kids did not look like we did perfect family devotions every morning. When they woke me
Yes,
up, we all did
yes,
our devotions together.
yes,
Or like,
yes.
you did all these
Hmm.
XYZ and
Hmm.
that's,
Hmm.
it's just like you prioritized your relationship with
Hmm.
Jesus and
Hmm.
modeled that for them. I think
Hmm.
modeling is just so important, but
Hmm.
sometimes we want to do more
Difficult.
because we like to
Exactly.
do a lot. We like to be
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah, we have this pressure. And I think a lot of our difficulty we have in parenting is often when we clash with our children because they remind us of ourselves. And I
Yes.
think God invites us to be healed in that area, and he will use our child. Only we don't understand that. We're just like, God, why did you give me this child? Because they're so difficult. And all along, the Lord is saying, well, actually, it's something I want to heal in you. And so this motherhood is just all about healing. I think our relationship with Jesus is just all about becoming more whole because whether we grew up in the church or not, we are all equally broken. And
Mm,
so Jesus, just knowing Jesus and being aware of how our children impact us helps us then to say, Jesus, is there something in me that you want to work out? I remember one time with my little 4-year-old, my third child was, ooh, he was wild. He was wild. I was like, Jesus, I don't understand. I don't know what to do with this child. He was 4 years old and he was just freaking out again. And I heard the Holy Spirit so clearly say, why are you so angry? And I said, excuse me? He's like, why are you so angry with your son? He's like, it's not your son. He said, it's you. You need to
mm,
deal with. So actually, my son was kind of triggering something inside of me. And so I worked on that for many years. Like, Lord, make me softer, make me gentle. I had all the books. Look out, she's gonna blow. look, look, I had them all. Don't yell, da 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 da, blah blah blah. I had all the books because But our children sometimes magnify the brokenness that we have inside. And so Jesus wants to partner with us and just heal us. So I think that's a huge part of mothering that we forget.
Yeah. Okay. So, like the books. Were the books helpful? Were the books not helpful? Like when you look back, like what is it? Are there things that you're like, that was silly and not great? Or is there something that, like, I wouldn't do that again? Or was it like, this was a game changer for me?
Yeah. Here's some of the things that I wouldn't do again. I think I was, as much as I'm a fun person, sometimes I kept it all too serious and like, we have things to do, people. And we have 5 kids getting out the door. I was a pastor's wife, so my husband left early in the morning. And I was like, every Sunday I'd have to get these 5 kids to church by myself.
Yeah.
And when people would say they couldn't get to church, I'm like, are you kidding me? I just had to get 5 children to church by myself and then act happy when I got there. And so what I would say is just not putting all that pressure on yourself. Yes, the books helped, but caring what other people thought, oh man, that one tripped me up a lot. That one tripped me up so much.
Do you think that's changed now? Like people in my stage of parenting because of social media?
Do you think it's better? Do you think there's less pressure? No.
But like I am like, what was it even like to parent without Instagram?
Yeah, thank God.
I don't know.
I can't.
It sounds great.
I don't know what we did with ourselves. Actually, we must have played
or read more books, more of your trigger books. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I loved learning. I loved understanding how people are. You know, I think that's such a key to knowing your children. Knowing how God wired them is so important.
Yeah.
They don't have to be us. You know, they're not supposed to be us. They're their own little humans with their own needs and way of seeing the world. And it's our job as moms to understand that, so we can help them thrive. So we can help them succeed in life. Another thing that I wouldn't change is that we taught our kids to work. I was not the maid in the house. When you have 7 people in your home, everything cannot fall on mom. Like moms overdo stuff for our children. And I just wanted my kids to know you're part of the family and you're going to contribute. And we started them all at 4 years old and they all knew how to contribute. When they went to college, they knew how to do laundry because they started doing their laundry when I think 13 was the age. But the youngest one at 11 was like, hey, can I do my laundry? I'm like, yes, you can.
I think I need to be better at that because I can do it faster.
Yes. Or you can do it right.
Right.
Yes.
Like when they make their beds, I'm like, oh, you guys did so good. They like line up all their stuffies and I'm like, okay, I mean, everything's crooked, but it's fine.
I know. See, yeah, we have to let go of that. There's that need for perfection again. It comes barreling through.
It really, and I don't even consider myself like a huge perfectionist, but it does come out even in someone like me who's pretty type B.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know.
Yep.
I've shared a little bit about how hospitality is one of the core values in our house. I love making my home as welcoming and comfortable as possible for my family and for any guests that we have. This is one of the reasons I love Home Threads. Home Threads can be your trusted partner in creating a loving and inspired home. At homethreads.com, you can explore furniture designed with the values of Christian parenting in mind. From prayerful spaces to family-friendly comfort, their pieces are crafted to nurture your children's hearts and souls. Home Threads has everything you need for every room of your house, from bedding and decor to kitchenware, blankets, and even furniture. You can visit homethreads.com/CP podcast today and get your code for 15% off of your order. Raising a family with your values should be reflected in every corner of your home, and with Home Threads, you can love where you live. As a working mom, 2 of my goals for the new year are to take better care of myself and simplify. And one of the ways I'm doing that is with HelloFresh. There's a reason HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. They make it so simple. All I have to do is pick my meals and my delivery date, and all of the pre-portioned ingredients and step-by-step instructions come right to my door. That means less hassle, less wasted food, and they have health-forward options like over 30 calorie-smart and protein-smart recipes each week. The recipe cards are easy to follow and they're full of pictures, so it makes cooking with my kids really fun too. And we all know that when they are involved in the cooking, they're more likely to eat it, so everyone wins. We have a great deal for you right now because I know that mornings can be crazy as a parent. I often find myself forgetting breakfast or grabbing something really fast. But you can go to hellofresh.com/CPPodcastFree and use the code CPPodcastFree for free breakfast for life. That's one breakfast item per box while the subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at hellofresh.com/CPPodcastFree with the code CPPodcastFree. What does your relationship with your adult kids look like now? And like, what does discipleship look like with adult kids? Because
Right.
we don't stop talking about faith. Like you said that when your kids were growing up, you talked about faith throughout your entire day. Like that was, it wasn't just for Sundays, it was every day. And that doesn't change when they get older.
It doesn't change.
But it does.
But it does, yeah.
So
because
what does that look like?
Yeah. I think in their teen years is when you start to see they're taking it on for themselves. Like they have to make God their own thing. And we have a lot of kids, who give their heart to the Lord when they're young, and that's beautiful and that's wonderful. And it doesn't always stick. But I think we watch how our children are doing, what it looks like. We ask questions, but once they become adults, and especially when you see your children pulling back, that is a very scary place to be in. It feels so frightening to a mom when all a mom wanted to do was have her children love God. Like she had one job, and that was to raise her kids to love God. So I remember one of my kids got in trouble when he was in high school, and I remember going to a Bible study the next day, and I was just in tears in the hallway, and my friend is like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "This happened." And this friend had her mom visiting from down south, and they listened to me while I'm crying in the hallway. And then her mom looked at me and said, "Oh, sweetheart, he's just working on his testimony." And I laughed hysterically. And then I also said, "Oh my gosh, it's his testimony." And then I hugged her and I said, "Gosh, thank you for that perspective," because I thought it was all on me. And I was already feeling like a failure. And as I walked into that room, I heard the Holy Spirit so clearly say, "I'm going to need you to love him through this." And that has been my guiding principle since that day. Now he's 29, but that has been my guiding principle, love, because that's what God calls us to, love.
Yeah.
So when our kids reject God, when our kids walk away, when they play in the world, because some of our kids will, that doesn't mean that we failed, but it just means we have to understand God is greater. And another thing that's so impactful for me, when we read the book of Kings, oh my gosh, every once in a while, I'll just go back to Kings and I'll go, I do not understand this, because here you have a godly king who will have wild children. And then you'll have the wild king who will have godly children. And I'm like, Lord, it doesn't even make sense. So this is not anything new. Nothing new is under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. This has been part of our human experience for years and years. And so this helps us to take the pressure off, because, Mom, you didn't do it wrong. You didn't do it wrong. Our children have free will. Like, we don't want our kids to love God because we pounded it into them. We want them to love God because they've experienced him and they know that they need him. And sometimes that road is going to look different, but it doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you're going to have to trust God in a new way. And that's what this season of parenting is about. It's like having a different faith. It's like holding on and letting God be sovereign and letting God do his work, because he's doing it. I see it. Are some of my kids who walked away back? They're not back yet, but they have never not been in relationship with me. And we get that a lot. So many people will say, I cannot believe how well your family gets along when all of you are at a different place spiritually or philosophically or socially. And I think, oh, Lord, thank you. That is the greatest compliment that I could ever receive as a mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that all comes back to you modeling your faith first and
Mm-hmm.
foremost, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you didn't wake up every morning and like start giving them a Bible study
No,
lecture,
no,
you know?
not at all. I just lived
And
it
you,
out.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, lived it out. And then
Mm-hmm.
I love what you said about it's his testimony. Like
Yeah.
that is something I feel like I need to like write on my wall. Like it's their testimony,
Yeah.
like not
Yeah.
mine. Like
Yep.
this is they're part of
Yep.
my story, but they have their
Yeah.
my kids are part of my story, but they have their
Yeah,
own
they
story
have their
too.
own story. Yeah, and that's what I always tell moms when they're in this waiting season. I'm like, God is still writing their story. He's not done. He's not done yet.
Yeah.
And we have so many examples in the Bible of how we are to respond to our prodigals. And of course, the best one is from the story of the prodigal. And what
Mm.
do we see the father doing? Does he whine and complain and moan and say, no, you can't have your inheritance? What are you thinking, you idiot? No, he hands it over and he lets him leave. He willingly surrenders. He lets go. But then what does he do? I imagine the father just ever looking to the horizon. He's going about his business. But every day he's looking and he's like, wow, I wonder if this is the day my son will return. And then he does. And when his son returns, does he lecture and scold and carry on? No, he wraps him in a hug and he says, I'm so glad you're here. Let's have a party. And that's how I want to be. And then we have the story of the lost sheep and the lost coin. And what's the other one? The lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost. I can't remember it now. Anyways, it's the lost sheep that's important. So the shepherd has his 99 and he leaves them all and he goes and searches for the one who's lost. And when he finds him, what does he do? He picks him up, sets him on his shoulders, and he carries him home. Like, how tender is our God towards our prodigals? So if God is going to be like that, why can't I also be like that? That's my model.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what that actually looks like. So you
Mm-hmm.
because like you disciple your kids as they grow. You do all the
Mm-hmm.
things you're supposed to do, and
Yep.
then you have a child, you have a prodigal, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, this was not my plan.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I
Yep.
did all the things.
Yeah. Yep.
So, how do the conversations change? Like, how do you talk to your kids about faith and maintain relationship
Yeah.
and
Yep.
like
Yep.
how do you balance that, because I feel like
Yep.
sometimes maybe we get concerned like, oh, I don't want to step on someone's toes or I don't
Yes.
want to push them away
Exactly.
because I talk
Exactly.
too much. Like how do
Exactly.
you balance all of that?
I don't lecture my child about God at all. Like, I want them to see God in me. Like, I
Mm,
want them to see God in my countenance. So, um, do they feel comfortable around me? Do they feel loved? Do they feel valued? Do they feel secure in my love? Because I want to be an example of that. Now, do I ask them if they can pray for them? Of course. They're like, of course, mom. Do I talk to the kids about the Lord. I'll be like, this is what the Lord is doing. A matter of fact, when I came up, I just created a course for moms of prodigals. And I needed to have a conversation with my kids about that. And what I told them, I said, is, you guys, this isn't even about the prodigals. This is for the mom to find healing because these moms feel so broken. They have a crisis of faith. They're like, God, what happened? I did A, B, and C and I didn't get D. And they're like, God, I feel like my prayers don't work. And they're so distraught. And sometimes they're disappointed in God. And then they don't know how to handle the emotional overwhelm. They're like, I don't know what to, I don't know what to do. So I help them with that. And then we talk about, how to love our kids. What does that look like? So I created this program to help these moms. And so as I was telling my kids, I said, it's not even about the prodigal, honestly. And so I want you to know that I don't want to dishonor you in any
mm,
way. I don't. Like, I do not want to hurt my kids. I don't. And so they received that really well. And when I talk about that God, they know I love God. So, I do it subtly. I'm not like, okay, let's read from the Bible. I don't do that because
Yeah.
that's really not the way I've operated. But if an opening comes, I will take it. And I
Yeah.
will patiently wait for God to give me the opening.
What are some of the things that you feel like you've done? Because the people are always commenting on your relationship with your
Hmm.
kids, and you
Hmm.
all have different beliefs or different
Uh-huh.
whatever. Like, what are
Yeah.
some of the things, like the top maybe 3 things that you've done that you think helped foster like really close relationship in your family?
Yeah. Open communication.
Mm.
Like we have to talk about things. I feel like a lot of family breakdown is because people don't know how to talk. Most relationship breakdown is because of lack of communication or misunderstanding or just so we have to foster that. I think a mom needs to really work on herself. I love Peter Cesarro's emotionally healthy spirituality. Girl, that'll change your life. Because like we all just need to be a little more emotionally mature. And a lot of our
Mm.
conflict comes because we aren't emotionally mature. We don't know how to handle the big things. We don't know how to handle when we're upset. So, and then um, like I just wanted my family to know that we were safe and we liked each other. Is that too simple?
No.
Because it could be easy. It could be easy for us to judge each other. That could be
Mm.
so easy. And I'm constantly asking God to help me not judge my children for where they are at. Because that is not my job. I am not the judge. That is not my job. My job is to love. So it's really a lot of just like doing the work and making sure my motives are pure, making sure I'm tender. I apologize if I say something stupid, which, yep, I often do.
Yeah.
So it's just
I
like
don't
humility and tenderness goes a long way.
Yeah, I don't think that's too simple. Sometimes I think that we probably overlook the simple because we're looking for
Mhm.
something like we're like, surely there has to be
There's
more
got to
than
be more.
communicating well.
Yes, yes.
You're telling me that's the
Yeah,
trick. Like
yeah,
that's it.
yeah. But like
No.
humility too, like a lot of parents are not humble with their children. They're
Mm.
just not. And humility is such, that's what Jesus exemplified. And so I feel like we can too. Like that's just being a good Christian to be a humble, gentle person. Now you know me.
Yeah.
I'm excitable and direct as they come, but that's great. That's the Holy Spirit working me, making me more
Yeah.
gentle because that's not my natural bent.
Right. Okay. So how then, because you are an Enneagram 7, like
Yes,
we are
7 wing 8.
excited about life
So
and we're
I'm
gonna like,
funny but kind of bossy.
yes. How does someone like you not lecture your children? That's what I
Yeah,
want to know.
yeah, because that will get me nowhere. That will get me nowhere. And the lecturing season is over once your children reach adulthood. Like that girl, if you are lecturing your adult children, you are overstepping a boundary. Like
Yeah.
when our children are adult, my children are responsible for their relationship with God. Like I did my part. I
Mm,
introduced them, but where they take it now is on them. That's not even on me. So there's a
yeah.
freedom in that. That's not my responsibility.
Yeah. I feel like that everything you just said probably takes a lot of, like you've been saying, work. Like it doesn't
Work,
come
so much
naturally.
work, so much praying, so much praying and so much work. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm hearing you say that. I'm
Mhm.
like, that all sounds really good in theory.
No, it takes a lot of work, but that's the beauty of that's working out our salvation. I believe that's what that means. Like
Mm,
doing this hard work of understanding and being compassionate and being gracious and being humble because that just doesn't come naturally to us.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's flip the coin a little bit
Okay.
because I'm just a little bit older than your kids, I think. But like pretty much, we're close here.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
My oldest is 34.
okay, I'm older than your kids.
Hmm. Or is he
Just
35?
by a little bit.
Is he 35? Oh, I lose track.
I mean, don't we all lose track at a
Yeah,
certain age?
yeah.
Does anyone know how old?
Yeah. Yes, you're a little
I don't
older,
feel
but
like
just a
no.
bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Um, so for the adult child who's struggling with their parents, feeling like we don't have the right boundaries intact, or
Mhm.
you're lecturing me too much, like,
Yeah.
or we
Yeah.
have different beliefs and I don't even know how to talk to you. Like, what
Yeah.
would your advice be
Yeah. Yeah.
for someone like me at my
Yeah.
age, if that was
Right.
my experience?
Right. So here's the deal. I Women my age knew nothing about boundaries. You say boundary and they're like,
Mm,
"What? What are you talking about?" But people your age, they're like, "Ooh, I've got my boundaries. I'm ready to boom, 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 boom,
we
boom."
love that word.
We love
Yeah,
that
we
word.
love it. We love it.
Yes, and actually, if you are ever using the term boundary itself with a family member, you're in deep trouble because one should never use that word. You're like, "Mom, I have a boundary." No, like don't do it like that because that just saying the word makes people go, "Ah, this is going to be painful." So instead, you say things like, "I need you to," or "I need this." And then it's a boundary is a limit. So you simply say,
Mm,
"I need you to dot dot dot." And you smile lovingly, and that's all you say. You don't argue, you don't carry on. And it's not your responsibility for them to like your boundary, and they may not. When we're not used to having boundaries, we're like, "What? Excuse me? What did you just say?" And they're gonna say, "Oh, don't be disrespectful to me." Well, you say, "Mom, I'm not being disrespectful, but this is just what I need." And just do
yeah.
one little one. Don't start with 12. Just do one little one. And, even to say something like, "Mom, I need you to hear me. I don't feel like you hear me." That's a very powerful statement. So powerful and so
Yeah.
simple, but also scary.
Yeah. I feel like either way, whether you're the parent of the adult child or the
Yeah.
adult child of the parent, like it's just I'm hearing a lot of you just saying soften and listen,
Yeah, exactly. That
right?
is also one of the biggest changes in our role as moms with adult kids is now we move to a listening role. No more lecturing. You listen. And you just simply say, "Tell me more about that." When your child comes to you and says, "Well, actually, I believe da 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 A, B, and C," and you're like, "Tell me more about that." And I say, "Well, where'd you hear that?" "Oh, well, how do you know that to be true?" And just listen. And then you say, "Thank you for sharing that with me." We don't freak out. We don't go, "Oh no, run for the hills." No, we take it to God and we say, "Thank you, God. Now I understand where my child is at, and now I know how to pray." See, this work is done in private with you and God. That's
Mm,
what this season is for. You don't take it out on your kid. You don't lecture your kid. You don't make them feel bad. Instead, you meet them where they are, offer compassion, and then you take it up with God. Anything that you're upset about with your adult kid, take that up with God. Of course, unless they're being disrespectful and rude, like you can say, "In our family, we don't talk to each other like that." Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. When do you feel like, looking back, like when do you feel like that transition started happening where you start entering this listening stage more
Yeah, I
than
would say
teaching?
teenagers. Teenagers. Mhm. Because what we want, I wanted my kids to be able to mess up while they were still with me.
Yeah.
So you give them a little more freedom. You go, "Okay." They're like, "I'm going to go here, dot, 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 dot." And you're like, "Okay, go ahead and go check in with me." And if they don't, then you're like, "Well, gosh, I thought we agreed that you were going to check in with me." But you give them more responsibility. You make them responsible for their choices and then see how they do. And then more coaching. But I feel like the days of our lecturing should be over by then, you know?
That sounds more fun, honestly.
Maybe
Sometimes it's
overall,
exhausting.
yeah, it's exhausting. And maybe overall, we just need a more tender tone. That's what I've been working on for 30 years, is to have a more tender tone. Maybe I finally have it a little bit, but it took a long time.
I mean, it's a sanctifying process, right?
Yeah,
This whole
yeah,
parenting thing
yeah,
is
it really is.
pruning our
Hmm.
sin away,
Right,
like
right.
little by little.
Yep.
Okay, to end our time, what like last encouragement would you have for the parent in like my stage where my kids are little and I'm just doing the things I'm supposed to do and I have hopes for what the future will look like? Like, what
Yeah,
encouragement do you have?
yeah. I just want you to know that God has you. You spend your time working on your connection with God. And when you are strong in the Lord, nothing will shake you. You have a sure foundation, and that whatever you face, God will still meet you in it. And remember, He's not done. He's not done yet. And there's such peace and confidence. Having confidence in God is everything as a parent. It's just everything. Not confidence in our kids. It's confidence in God.
Yeah. And I feel like that's so good because it's so easy to start to, when you're so hands-on with your kids, it's really easy to put all your confidence in them, in what they do.
Yes.
And then they let you down.
Yeah. And then you're like, well, now what do I do? Now what do we do?
Yeah. Turns out we're all imperfect.
Yeah, it turns out.
Like, shoot.
And we need a savior, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That is really encouraging. And I think it's just a really helpful way to kind of end this series, just reflecting back on what it looks like to disciple kids for a lifetime. Because like we said before, like parenting journey does not end.
It never ends. It changes, but it never ends.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell us, truly before we go, how we can connect with you? Maybe some of the resources you have if people want to hear more, and just where we can find you.
Awesome. Well, I am an empty nest coach. So I love to coach empty nest moms to help them with the relationship with their kids, to help them build some boundaries, to help them understand what their purpose is after their kids are gone. Because honestly, most moms are like, well, what in the world am I supposed to do now? But I can tell you, I can reassure you that the empty nest season of life is divine. It is divine. My husband and I are having a blast. We've been empty nesters for 4 years, and we just walk around saying we can do whatever we want, whenever we want, and we can't believe it.
And you make some good meals.
We do love to cook together. He's my sous chef, and I cook, and it's just perfect.
I mean, that sounds like great.
Yeah. And you can find me on Instagram at P. Henkleman. And then you can find the Midlife Mama podcast, MOMMA, where all podcasts are played. And then at my website, PamelaHenkleman.com, is where you can find more information about coaching. And I have a bunch of free resources. My favorite one right now is a little freebie called Your Kids Are Grown, Now What? And it's just a 4-page guide to help you understand what you will likely experience in this phase of your motherhood. So will you be the empty feeling mom, or the questioning mom, or the celebratory mom?
I love that. That's awesome. I'm going to put all that in show notes so that people can find it really, really easily.
Wonderful.
Thank you for joining me today, Pamela. It was so great to have you on.
It was my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. I have all the links to connect with Pamela in show notes for you so that you can easily find them. If you want more information and resources for discipling your kids, make sure to download our Discipleship Simplified digital guide. I have links to that in the show notes as well, so it's super easy for you. I hope that you have a wonderful week. May God bless you and keep you. May you remember that He runs after you and celebrates you and your faithfulness. God has your kids in His hands, and He loves them even more than you do. He is writing their story, and it is very good. Thank you so much for listening to the Christian Parenting Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you love this podcast, would you please consider leaving a review and sharing it with a friend? This is the best way to reach more people and encourage even more parents. Christian Parenting is a donor-funded ministry, and we rely on friends like you to keep podcasts like this going. So to find out more about Christian parenting and to make a donation, head over to christianparenting.org or at christianparenting_org on Instagram. Thank you again. See you next week.
Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.